بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. اللهم ربنا أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي، ربنا زدنا علما وعملا وإخلاصا يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر أولياءك في غزة وفي الضفة فلسطين كلها، خاصة في شمال غزة وفي لبنان وفي اليمن وفي مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم فرج عنا وعن إخواننا في غزة وفي فلسطين كلها، خاصة في شمال غزة وفي لبنان وفي اليمن وفي السودان وفي مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم نفس كربنا وكربهم وثبت أقدامنا وأقدامهم والطف بنا وبهم يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم فرج عنا وعن إخواننا في غزة وفي لبنان. اللهم فرج عنا وعن إخواننا في شمال غزة وفي لبنان. اللهم نفس كربنا وكربهم وثبت أقدامنا وأقدامهم والطف بنا وبهم يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. وصل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Let's start. We stopped here. Whitehead's last book, Adventures of Ideas, 1933, and Modes of Thought, 1938, are less technical and more lyrical than Crisis and Reality. Adventures of Ideas, clearly the more significant of those two. It presents a philosophical study of the notion of civilization. It holds that social changes in a civilization are driven by two sorts of forces: brute, senseless agencies of compulsion on the one hand, and formulated aspirations and articulated beliefs on the other. These two sorts of forces are epitomized by barbarians and Christianity in the ancient Roman world, and by steam steam and democracy in the world in the Industrial Revolution. That's it. On the face of it, it seems very superficial because formulation and inspiration also have brute face. As someone said, as a word, as once you utter a sentence or declare a statement, then it's no longer in your hands. I mean, it acts like a brute force afterward. It may act like a brute force afterwards. So, Whitehead's focal point in Adventures of Ideas is aspirations, beliefs, and ideals as instrument of change. Ideas are important, but so what he's saying is civilization you have ideas and you have technology. Now, ideas are the main force of change. But change is more complex than ideas. Ideas are one vehicle. And probably they're important in various aspects, but most of the ideas come after the fact, justifications. think actions are important. Actions, individual action, social action. And institutions are important. Institution not as ideas, but actual institutions. And I think when we talk about institution, talk about the way of life of people. For people. Institutions, economic institutions, the social as well as market level, social institutions in general, police, army, judiciary. These are important, and the concentration of power. That's very important. As Allah Iqbal says, "Asana ho to kalimi hai kare bebuniyat." Without power, ideas are of no use generally. I mean, you can mobilize ideas to, you can use ideas to mobilize power, but without power, ideas take us nowhere. Whitehead's focal point is adventures of ideas, aspirations, beliefs, and ideals as instruments of change. In particular, he is concerned to articulate the ideas and aspirations appropriate to our own era. Yeah, but for what purpose? Is he to solidify the current system of ideas, or to mobilize for some alternatives? That's the point. The character of such ideals and aspiration at any moment is limited by the philosophical understanding available at that moment. Available to whom? Like different people have different alternatives available to them. Different people can see things differently, depending on how close they are or how dominant they are by the present. So it's not a simple thing of availability. There are different levels of availability and different spaces of availability. So the characteristics of such ideals and inspiration at any moment is limited by the philosophical understandings available at that moment, because in their struggle for release and efficacy, such ideals and aspiration can appear only in forms permitted by the available philosophical. That's true. But that permission and its efficacy depends on your position in the system as well. So those ideals have far firmer grip on the core of the dominant core of the dominant system. But then in Preferi, permission is different. Possibilities are different. So that's why revolutions start from Preferi, not just in the physical or spatial sense, but in the sense of the dominance of system of ideas as well. In the final section of Adventures of Idea, Whitehead presents statements of ideals and aspiration fit for our era, as his own philosophy of organism allows them to take shape and be articulated. The notions of beauty, truth, adventures, as eros, and peace are given the content drawn from the technical understanding elaborated in process and reality. But in adventure, idea is less technical language is used, language reminiscent of poetic imagery found in the style of Plato's Republic. A language making not language making the ideas accessible to readers who have not mastered present. I mean, this in this short entry has said this thing at least 3 times, so I don't know why. But at the same time, few are richer and more meaningful with those who have a language making the ideas accessible to readers who have not. Okay. Whitehead notes in Adventure the idea that Plato's later thought circles around the interweaving of 7 main notions, namely the ideas, the physical element, and the psyche, the eros, the harmony, the mathematical relation, the receptacle. These notions are as important to us now as they were then at the dawn of civilization of the modern world, when civilization of the old type were dying. Whitehead uses these notions in quite novel and modern ways. One who is unfamiliar with his metaphysics can get something of what he means as he speaks of the eros of the universe. But if one is familiar from process and reality with the notions of primordial nature of God and the consequent nature of God, then one sees deeper into the meanings of the adventure of ideas. Okay, Whitehead was not religious in any narrow sense. Oh, he was Anglican Christian, I think, and quite nationalist as well. That closes off a lot of prospects for you. He explicitly likened his stance to that of Aristotle, dispassionately considering the requirement of the metaphysical system as they refer to the question of existence and the nature of God. Well, if the world is organism, how can you consider that dispassionately? um, isn't this dispassionately again a Cartesian vantage point which you are trying to reject? Just asking. Considering the requirements of his metaphysical system as they refer to the question of the nature, Whitehead's thoughts on these matters are more fully developed in chapter 11 of Science in the Modern World, in which, in the final chapter of Process and Religion in the Making, these thoughts are expressed at a high level of generality, meaning abstraction. Even though he was apparently, or is philosophy abstraction? Anyhow, perhaps because of this, a large part of interest generated by Whitehead's thought has been within the community of theologians. Which theologians? His ideas fairly beg for elaboration and development in the context of particular modes of religious understanding. It is as though many modern theologians, recalling the relation between theology of Aquinas and the metaphysics of Aristotle, cannot resist the temptation to play Aquinas to Whitehead's Aristotle. Process theology, or neoclassical theology as it is referred to by Hartshorne, one of his leading practitioners, has been the arena within which a great deal of clarification and development of Whitehead's ideas has occurred. Whitehead's Aristotle. Whitehead was a gentleman, soft-spoken, never overbearing. He constantly encouraged students to step out on their own to develop their creative capacity. His concern not to inhibit his students made him a notoriously easy grader. It was said that an A minus from him was equivalent to failure. Lucian Price's dialogue of Alfred North Whitehead chronicles many evenings of discussion in the Whitehead household. He there described Whitehead as follows: his face serene, luminous, often smiling, the complexion pink and white, the eyes brilliant blue, clear and candid as a child's, yet with the depth of the sage, often laughing or twinkling with humour. And there was his figure, slender, frail, and bent with lifetime of a scholar's toil. Always benign, there was not a grain of ill will anywhere in him. For all his formidable armament, never a wounding word. Okay. I think the last part wasn't that helpful, but basically we got grip on the gist of his ideas. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa azwajihi wa dhurriyyatihi min rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma amin ya rabb. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa azwajihi wa dhurriyyatihi min rahmatika